Views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants. The hosts make no claim to be literary experts, and their opinions are exactly that, opinions. All creative works discussed or reviewed are the intellectual property of the creators of said stories and is being used under the Fair Use Doctrine.
Hello and welcome to Of Swords and Soulmates, a podcast where we read, watch, and discuss romantasy stories. I'm one of your hosts, Mari, and with me I have Kelly.
Hey everyone, it's Kelly. And like always, we have Ashley.
Hey guys, it's Ashley. We also have Jonathan.
Hey, what's up? It's JP.
We're gangs all back together. Today we're going to be discussing Thrown in the Dark by AK Caggiano. But first, as always, we're going to go over some news. The first thing I had is not 100% book related, but there's a Kickstarter board game that I believe closes today, the date that this podcast airs. It's called A Place for All My Books, and it's basically a board game for like book people. It's 1 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, and it's like a 60-minute gameplay, and you're basically collecting books, rearranging books, and like there's something about like it recharges your social battery and then you can go get more books. Yeah, it sounds like a fun, like nerdy, bookish, like generic bookish. It's not like you have to know anything about any particular genre or book or whatever. Fun little game. So if anyone likes books and board games, that would be potentially worth checking out.
Have you ever done a Kickstarter?
Yeah, I've done a few.
Made one?
Yeah. Interesting.
Like been part of one or made one?
Like done one, like
paid into one?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a few board games we've done through Kickstarter. I'm trying to think what else we may have done through Kickstarter. Oh, I have a travel toothbrush that I supported on Kickstarter that's like it's still being made, but it's like you do the little toothpaste in the handle of the toothbrush and it's like all in one. It was really neat. And a really neat idea for like compact travel. I mean, it's an interesting concept because you're helping, and if it's something you're interested in, you get it.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as buying it because there is that whole potential that it never fully gets funded or fully gets made,
Do you get your money back if it doesn't?
Yeah, they don't. I'm trying to remember. They don't charge you until.
Unless it reaches the funding goal.
Yeah.
So if they say we need $100,000 for this project, if they raise enough supporters to meet that amount, then it'll get funded and you'll get charged for it. And if they don't reach the goal, then your credit card or whatever never gets charged.
Interesting.
So it's a bit of a gamble. The other news I have is Publishers Weekly dropped some stats of the 2024. And after 2 years of print book sales being in decline, 2024 was the first year that it has gone up. I mean, it didn't go up significantly, but it's not dropped. And adult fiction category was what basically bumped that up. Fantasy had the biggest increase. And there's a quote I had from the article said, fantasy had the biggest increase in the adult segment, up 35.8%. Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros were the queens of romantasy in the year, with each landing 2 books among a year's top sellers. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury moved about 1.3 million and 791,000 copies respectively, while sales of Yarros's Iron Flame and Fourth Wing sold nearly 1.7 million copies combined last year.
Hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What percentage of profits do you think she sees from that?
Which she?
Rebecca.
Oh. Well, seeing as how those 2 books only recently moved to Kindle Unlimited, it was probably a decent turnaround. Kindle Unlimited, you get paid by the page read.
Right.
Not by the book borrowed.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know how that worked.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
It says traditional publishers and print generally 5 to 15% of sales. And so I guess it would be 15% if you're like Stephen King and 5% if you're a less well-known author.
I'm going to guess that she probably didn't have an amazing deal for Fourth Wing, although she's a well-known contemporary romance writer.
Right.
Romantasy, like this was her first official romantasy book. But she probably brokered herself a better deal, I'm hoping, for Iron Flame and Forward.
Yeah.
If she didn't, she needs to get her people on it.
Well, and the fact that they came to her, they wanted her to write, like her publisher wanted her to write in the genre. So I would think they would have had to offer her something good, right?
Yeah, I think it was something, I believe I read or saw something at some point where she had been wanting to do this for quite some time and she couldn't get buy-in from her publisher or whatever for a very long time. She's got a number of contemporary romances out there.
Right.
And then I guess just eventually it was, all right, let's hear your pitch.
Yeah.
And she had to come with like 5 fully formed pitches, beginning, middle, and end, basically. And I think I had also read that Violet getting spoiler here, that Violet getting 2 dragons was actually a compromise with her agent or publisher or whatever. That because, I think originally she had these 2 ideas, but she was angling towards like Andarna being the only dragon, and the publisher was like, not really sure how that's going to be perceived. And then they were like, okay, well, what about a really, really badass dragon and Andarna? And that's how she got 2. That was not the original plan.
See, now that gives me a little bit of heart palpitations for all the theories that are like, Taryn's going to die before the series is over with. And I'm like, you shut your mouth.
There's a cult following.
Oh, I gotta say, for ACOTAR being a 10-year-old book, for it to still be in the top 10?
Yeah.
Woof. That's pretty damn good.
That's all social media.
Yeah.
In my very humble opinion. I think the power of social media for Rebecca and for Sarah J. Maas has been probably pretty life-changing. I think, Sarah had a cult of her own before Book Talk, but if they're in the last 2 years, I mean, before Fourth Wing came out, it was definitely like Sarah J. Maas and Jennifer Armentrout, I think is how you pronounce her last name. And I've not read any of her books, but she has several series out. And she actually runs
Polycon.
I think it's a Polycon, yeah, JLM. And those were the 2 really, really, really big authors that just flooded my For You page on TikTok. So big names with lots of books.
Yeah. I think there's something about capturing an audience of readers too, a pipeline of readers. You have people who, maybe got into some voracious reading with like Hunger Games and stuff in that era.
Right.
And there wasn't as much that captured that group of people or maybe brought them back to reading until some of this ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, Throne of Glass, like this whole new wave of whatever, wave of romantasy or whatever, I think has brought some people back into reading,
For sure. My sister, was never a reader. She had always just never really she never thought she could do it almost, right? Like she didn't have the time. She didn't have like the bandwidth, to just sit down and read in the way that one can just sit down and watch, 5 hours of television.
Yeah.
She never really believed that it was for her. And then she did, it was just, I think the exposure on social media and the hype and the excitement for the storytelling, it finally just spoke to her. And, she sat down and she read a book and she was like, well, fuck, this was amazing. This is for me. And now she has a bookshelf with books on them.
Yep.
She has a Kindle and a whole little setup.
And I think that's
and
another
my little
thing.
Reader heart is so excited for her.
I think that's another thing too. Like I think some things that are making reading easy as a whole are also leading towards people buying print books, even if they didn't necessarily read it that way. So you have the more availability of audiobooks and better quality audiobooks. And you have e-readers that are, pretty high quality and more affordable than they used to be.
Oh yeah.
And
you
tons
can
of people do
them.
book trophies. You might read it on your e-reader or listen to it or whatever. And then you're like, well, now I want it for my bookcase.
Correct. Yeah. She started with a tiny little shelf like that was mounted on her wall. And then she had to invest in an actual like book shelf with, tiers, like 5 tiers. So it's been exciting for me to watch that growth for her. Like she came to the Romantasy Con last year and she had a blast. And that was, I mean, arguably all of our first times going to a con of that nature. But like to see her be excited and, you know, buy books. And she sent me a picture the other day of like her decorated Kindle, you know, she got like a clear case and she put stickers on the back. And I think, Jonathan, you gave her the stickers. She was very excited. And she's going to switch out her stickers based on her mood or the season or whatever. It's a whole thing.
Is she coming back to the RamseyCon this year?
So I'm unclear. The kids are bigger. Would you think it would make it slightly easier? But I'm not sure. Jonathan and I also invested in 2 days, and she likes a plan, but getting her to commit 10 months in advance is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So we bought the tickets and we were like, hey, if you want to do one day or both days, like, you know, let us know.
Flexibility.
And we'll coordinate. Yeah, but we bought the tickets in fear that they might sell out.
Yeah.
But she has not purchased her ticket or tickets yet.
Okay. Well, I hope she comes.
Yeah, for sure.
The last little bit of tidbit news I have is that the cover was revealed. The image was revealed for Sinlin Yu's Alchemized. Yep.
Did I break your radar because I just screamed? No, was that too high pitch? Okay, I was trying to keep my tone. Because we practiced this and I got frustrated because he kept asking me to test my sound. And I was like, I'm not going to yell on the podcast, but I didn't realize that we had the cover reveal on our talking points.
So it's going to be released October 30th, 2025. The cover is gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
I mean, it's very gothy. It's very like line drawing, etching, almost like a Geiger style. Yeah. I'm excited. I hope it's good.
I heard there was like some disappointment that the artist for the cover was not the artist that had kind of done the fan fiction prints. But my understanding is that there are pages perhaps inside the book that does have images from the fan fiction artist.
Oh, that'll be good.
I might be tripping this up. And I forget their names, and that's my fault for not doing research in advance. Listeners, forgive me. But yeah, I read the synopsis for the book and I'm excited. My sister was like, well, what do you think? Like, is this, you know, close to the fan fiction? And I was like, honestly, this sounds pretty close, like pretty on par.
Yeah.
I wasn't disappointed at all by what I read and what I saw. So I'm hyped.
Yeah.
I think I sent it to you, right? Like,
yes, you got me turned on to this for sure. Yeah, I read it.
So we are pre-ordered.
Yes, same.
We are pre-ordered.
All 976 pages coming this way.
Somebody pray for us, please, because the damage from the fan fiction was real.
Yeah. What will you be doing in October? Crying my eyes out.
Wait, yeah, just destroyed.
Yeah.
Just destroyed. And I do appreciate how she made it one complete book instead of like forcing us to wait for, you know, multiple like a series.
Yeah.
Because that's not how the fan fiction reads. So I think her fan base is really excited, and they should be, because it was just phenomenal writing.
Yeah.
In my very humble opinion. So I'm stoked. There's a lot of books coming out this year that I'm stoked about. I don't think I've ever pre-ordered so many books before.
I was about to say that exact same sentence. I have never in my life had so many books pre-ordered.
And I've been careful. Like, I've been selective, but there must be 5 or 6 on deck for me this year.
Yeah. I've got 9.
Oof.
So
I'm actually scared to look now that I said it out loud. I'm hoping it's just 5.
Oh,
I'm hoping it's just 5.
I've got the Compendium of Lost Tales coming out this month, which is the 3rd in the Emily Wilds series. I've got the new cover of Sword Heart that's being re-released coming out this month. Juliet Cross is releasing a book in April that I have pre-ordered.
Is that the Firebird? Is it Fire?
Yeah, Firebird.
I want to, but it's like $30. And I'm just like, gosh, dang.
It's real pretty.
It is. There are no lies.
Yeah, I really hope it's good. I mean, it's got the picture that extends along the painted edges.
Don't peer pressure me, Mari.
Don't do it. You don't need it. You're okay.
4, 5, 6. It's like 6.
Yeah. The Enchanted Greenhouse, which is a sequel to Spell Shop, is coming out in July. Accomplice to the Villain is coming out in August. Hemlock and Silver, the new T. Kingfisher, is coming out in August. R.F. Kuang has a book coming out in August that I've heard people say is going to be her first foray into romantasy.
Catabasis?
Yes.
That you might have gotten that from me. I'm not even sure.
Maybe. Yep. The Things Gods Break, which is the sequel to, our Abigail Owens story, is coming out in September, and then Alchemized. So, yes, all the pre-orders.
So ma'am, you are missing, where is it?
Rebel Without a Cause?
No. Hold please. I'm starting to panic now because the second Callie Hart book is supposed to come out this year, I thought.
Yeah.
The sequel to Quicksilver?
Yeah, actually I did pre-order that one, but I pre-ordered that one on a different website. I think I did the British, the Waterstones, because they're the first one I did Waterstones, so I wanted them to match.
And there's been there's been a title reveal on that one. Brimstone.
Yes.
November 18th.
Yes.
So I think the only one that you're missing, not to add to poor Kelly's debt.
Oh no, it's all my debt.
Okay, good.
It's all my
Crisis
debt.
averted. So in July, I don't know if you have this one, is the other Dramini fan fiction. I thought I mentioned it last time. The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy.
I wanted to read it before I pre-order it, but maybe I just need to pre-order it.
I don't know if it's still available now.
Well, that might make the choice for me then.
Downloaded it. Yeah. If you didn't download it before the end of the year, I'm pretty sure it's gone off of AO3.
Okay. Well, then I may just have to pre-order that one. I've got two more on pre-order. Yeah, I've got the Faithbreaker, which is the third Fallen Gods trilogy by Hannah Kaner. She wrote Godkiller. The third one is coming out. And then I have The Ballad of Falling Dragons, which is the sequel to When the Moon Hatched.
So I need to read that. That was a massive tangent on our news list. Sorry, guys, but it felt like important. I feel like we should do a pre-order catch-up every quarter.
I agree. Hey, listeners.
What do we have on deck?
Yes, listeners, tell us. What have you pre-ordered? Because we want to know.
What are we missing, guys? We need to know.
On to why we're here, which is to talk about, we talked about books, but also talking about A Throne. And I've had the hardest time remembering the name of this book. No shade on the author or anything. I enjoyed the book, but for some reason the name would not stick in my head. So Throne in the Dark by AK Caggiano. I think I'm the one who suggested it. I couldn't remember, but I think I suggested it.
Yeah, I don't know how we got here.
Okay. If I'm the one that suggested it, I think I remember first hearing about it on like Reddit. There was a chat thing where people were talking about books that are like Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher that I really liked. And this was recommended by several people. So it was on my list to read because of that. So, and it's like, it's Valentine's Day-ish, it's February, so we'll read it. So let me talk a little bit about it, and then we'll get into talking about the book and our opinions. This book's self-published September 28th, 2022. I was looking through her website, the author's website, and she credits her illustrators and stuff on there, and Angeo Art, Angeo Art, is the artist who did the covers for all three books in this trilogy. So the synopsis. Dark Lord, Demon Spawn, prophesied realm destroyer. With a demon for a father, Damien Maleficus Bloodthorn's destiny could be nothing but nefarious. And with the completion of his most vicious spell, Damien's on the cusp of fulfilling the evil inevitability all of his dark machinations have led to. And then, her. Bubbly, obnoxious, blonde. Harboring secrets of her own, a tiny yet troublesome thief calling herself Amma completely upsets Damien's malevolent plans when she mistakenly gets chained to his side through magic, forcing him to drag her across the realm. Killing her would fix things, of course, but the nauseatingly sweet Amma proves herself useful on Damien's unholy crusade, and then proves herself the source of something even more sinister. Feelings. Will Damien be forced to abandon his villainous birthright to help the tender thorn in his side, or will he manage to overcome the virtue Amma insists on inspiring and instead cut it out at the heart? So, we're going to get into the book discussion. This is, we've started doing it this way this year. It's all spoilers, so we are not limiting ourselves. And if you've not read the book, maybe pause it. So what do we think, like, overall rating?
I'll go first. I I started chuckling in the first chapter. I was interested. I just also could not speed through it.
Mm-hmm.
I struggled to finish the book, and I don't think it had anything to I can't figure out why. I like the story. I think just maybe there was a lot of it. I'm questioning my sanity here, but it was funny. It was quirky. There's some slow burn stuff happening. I thought I thought there was a real attempt at world building and character building, at least for what I got through. Because full transparency, I didn't finish. So sorry, guys. I think this is my first I didn't get through it book.
All good. All good.
So it was like a 3.5 for me because I didn't not like it. I've definitely read books on this podcast that I didn't like. I just couldn't finish it in time.
Kelly or Jonathan?
I thought it was like a smoldery, not like a, I wouldn't even call it like a slow burn, like just a light smolder.
Smolder.
With and it was interestingly light. Like there were just hints of spice or hints of action that you thought maybe would be around the next chapter. And I didn't find them. But I think
they kept eluding you.
They kept eluding me. So if I was reading it if I had to like change my perspective. So initially I thought, I'm going to read this as Monster Spice. And I think once I changed my perspective and started looking at it through the lens of like YA monster romance, then I started seeing it differently. I didn't get the chuckles like you got the chuckles.
Oh, I liked the banter. I thought it was cute.
With the audiobook was interesting. So maybe that took away from it because when they changed perspectives, you heard the when you are in the masculine tone and the masculine tone impersonated the feminine tone, it was very
ruined it for you.
It ruined. It wasn't done well.
Tell them about Kaz, guys. How did you hear Kaz's voice in your heads?
Kind of. Okay, so for me, Kaz was basically a fire imp version of Kaz Brecker from the Leah Bardugo book. So kind of older and like ornery, kind of over it, like Kaz Brecker if he'd never had his crew, and older. That's how I
tell them.
The voice selection in the audiobook was like a New York asshole.
Yes, basically. Yes.
Yeah.
But like the New York accent for me just made it so much better. You got to do the imitation. Do it.
Hey, forget it. Get out of my way, you whore. It was like, I was like that. Wow. I was like, came out of left field. Like, what the fuck?
The chuckle I chuckled when he told me that tonight, because we hadn't really talked about you, and that's something I should do more frequently, is ask if there are any interesting quirks about the voices, right? Because the pirates were like a Scottish accent or something like that when we did the pirate book, and that was like, why? But Kaz being so ornery, but also a New York accent in this fantasy.
He was like an idiot, just like real, like, you know,
like abrasive.
I'm walking here.
Yeah, real abrasive.
Yeah, like, and everything was like, instead of a period, it was just like Yahuwah. And that's how we would that's how they would say it. Like like anytime he was, I forget whatever terms it was just reflex that he couldn't not call her some sort of derogatory name.
But
at
in the
end.
New York accent, like for me, that's the icing on the cake. Like it just makes it 1,000 times better for some reason.
I think only from the feminine perspective was he voiced. So it was like, so they would change.
Oh, so you never heard it in a masculine?
No, you heard it in masculine. But when he was doing, because he had, sometimes when they do these like demons, it's oftentimes like a very formal like accent, like English UK kind of accent, and then she's very Americanized, and then Kaz is just like, "Hey, I'm walking here, you whore."
That's like trollop.
You trollop. Yeah.
I literally cannot contain myself.
I need a bagel, you trollop. Get out of my way. Anyway, it was interesting. I did go down a rabbit hole of Marcus. This is what made me go down this rabbit hole, because in the book they pronounce it, and the audio it's Marcus.
Marcus?
Yeah. So I was like, I was like, okay, so why are they saying it that way? So then I went and looked it up. Marquis is a male lord. Marquise is a female lord or a lady.
Look at us learning.
And I had to and I was like, well, maybe they're just wrong. Maybe it just caught fire. Maybe like they're in the audio booth. And then I was like, give it to me phonetically. And they were like, were you talking about a dude? Marquis. And it was just like, I don't even know if they pronounce the R in the book, but in the phonetic, they don't pronounce the R. I'm going to open a can. Let me mute myself.
That was terrible timing, sir. What was your rating?
5 stars.
Okay. All of that.
It was, once I changed my perspective on it, 5 stars.
Okay. I wanted to like it. There was just so much of it.
I would give this to my 16-year-old. If I don't have a 16-year-old, but if I have one, I'll give it to a 16-year-old. Okay, this is right up your alley.
Understood.
I kept waiting for them to say the word cock, and they got like halfway.
No cocks.
No, they said cock.
Only half cocks.
They got CO. Yeah, they were half cock. She held one, but it was dead.
Oh.
It was a dead one. She was like,
stop.
Yeah. But they don't address it. They're not. They just allude to, like, they're like, that's what that was. Okay, cool. But they don't say it. All right. They're like, it's just like, it's little. Which one? They were like, which one should we choose? This one. And she like pulled out like a floppy one. Like, yeah, that's the one I would use. So I was like, at that point, I was like, here we go. Buckle up. It's gonna happen. No, didn't happen.
PG.
Mm-hmm. But I'm okay with that. Once you look at it from that lens.
I'm proud of you.
For what?
For changing your perspective.
Interesting.
Kelly, what did you think?
I thought it was a decent book. I enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of Assistant to the Villain.
Yeah.
Overall, I would say 3.5 stars. I think what really pushed it down from being like a 4 was it just seemed to drag out a lot of things that didn't need to be dragged out. And there were a lot of parts there where the book was unnecessarily long.
I agree with you on that. It was like they got caught. They get caught in some chapters longer than they should. Like in some situations, way longer than they should.
Depth side quests.
Yeah.
The whole book felt like a side quest.
So yeah, I was looking at her website. See, to me, the book felt like a D&D, like a Dungeons and Dragons game, and I was like, this really feels like a campaign somebody had and then like turned it into a book or a story. And she actually does on her website and on her like Instagram feed and whatnot. She plays D&D. So I'm like, I wonder.
She's playing the long game.
Yeah. I wonder if this was like a campaign. And that's why some of these things drag, because if you've never played D&D, it's not a set script. It's not like you're following a movie or reading a book. It's, however many people are in your party, and sometimes someone wants to go look at the shiny object over there. And so you're side questing to go look at some random shiny object that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. So Kelly knows. Kelly runs our campaign, and we do a lot of side and not doing what you thought we were going to do, don't we, Kelly?
Yep.
Got to keep him on his toes.
What's a like? Can you define a campaign?
So a campaign is basically the whole game. So like if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to get together, you're going to play, and so you are the same character pretty much the entire time. Like say maybe I'm a fighter, and maybe Jonathan, you're like a wizard, and maybe Ash, you're like a cleric or whatever. Then we all are going to go do a thing. Like, let's say this time we get together, we're going to play for 4 hours or whatever, and we're going to free somebody. And then they're going to give us like a little clue as to something else. And so you get together, and all these games that you play over however long it takes, are the whole campaign, the whole story, or the whole story arc. And your characters level up almost like a video game. Really, video games are like D&D, I guess. Their characters level up and get better at what they do as the game goes on. So maybe your wizard will get more spells. Maybe your cleric will be blessed more by their god. Maybe your fighter will get a better weapon or something. And so you have different levels until you reach the end of your story, the end of your campaign, whatever that may be, whether that's reaching level 20, whether that's getting a particular goal, whether it's slaying a big bad or, whatever.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, so she plays. So the author plays. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely an influence. It's a high 4-star read for me. I almost gave it 5, and I will read the rest. I plan to read the rest, and I may bump up the series as a whole to a 5. But for right now, this particular book, I would say is a 4. I enjoyed it. I laughed a good bit. I laughed out loud a good bit. Even from the beginning, I think the first time I remember laughing was probably chapter 1, where Damien's like, oh, I've done my life goal because complete. And then it's like, he was 27. He's sweet summer child. Okay. So yeah, I pretty much got the tone early on. And there were plenty of parts where I laughed out loud. I agree with Kelly. It's definitely more comp to Assistant to the Villain in terms of the tone and the comedy, which comedy is hard. Comedy may not hit the same for everybody. But it worked for me. The main reason why I didn't give it a full 5 was because I felt like Damien's character had a really good character growth, or at least a character arc. There was a story. He started in one place and he finished somewhere else. And I felt like we went along with that. We're along for that ride. But I felt like Emma's entire character growth happened off screen. When she realized everything that was going on in her realm and decided to go on this journey. And I don't feel like she really changed or progressed a whole lot from the beginning of story to the end. And it would have been a full 5 to me if they both felt like they went somewhere. So, I mean, maybe in the other books it'll change, but overall a definite 4, a solid 4. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah. I would recommend this.
The comedy did not land with me. I was I was hoping
the big bad daddy with
it didn't land
the super bro chat. He didn't sound broy to you, kiddo, buddy.
That's the other thing that I like.
Darkest Overlord is calling his son kiddo and
buddy.
bud.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got that. But
give me a hug.
It wasn't him hugging. It was he's stuck in a
crystal
piece of crystal. Yeah.
Yeah,
crystal shard. He's like, hug my kid for me.
The personality versus who the character is supposed to be.
Yeah, it was such a small part of the book.
So here's what I think, though. I think it's actually a bigger part of the book because I think it's a way of showing, and this is another thing I liked about it. I think Damien is an unreliable narrator.
Ooh.
I think it's because it's oh, his dad's this, horrible, or renowned demon of darkness and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, hey, buddy, how you doing, kiddo? And then it makes you question other things because there's certain points where he talks about him being all dark and bad or whatever. And Alma's like, oh, yeah, sure. This is one of those times where you're like, I'm so bad. So she calls him out on his evilness or whatever multiple times, and it makes me wonder if all the characters from his perspective is just him being kind of deluded or just an unreliable narrator, his version of things at the time.
Yeah, it almost felt like he's programmed to feel like a certain type of way and he's gonna constantly see things through this lens. And I think that his father, so the way I saw his father was almost reformed. I took a whole bunch of shit for granted. I was a real piece of shit, and now I'm stuck in this mason jar prison kind of thing, and can't get out. And now that I'm here, I've had a whole bunch of time to reflect, and I don't want to have to sit back and reflect for eternity. So if my son can get me out, I'm already happy. I'm just happy with the relationships that I have now, and we'll just keep rolling forward on this. And his son is just I have this quest and it's undeniable. This is what I have to do. I'm driven to do this. I have an on off switch and it's on, and now I'm going to go do this. And this is, here we go kind of thing. And I think he's almost wrestling with, he is wrestling with it. How, these are strange feelings, the Grinch kind of feelings. Mm-hmm. I think that Amma is kind of in that same boat too. Where she's sort of, she left on a singular quest and found something I don't think she intended to find. I think she just she relegated herself to that betrothed role, and then saw a different pathway that had presented itself that I don't think she saw initially. And she thought, I'd kind of like to take that pathway. I just hope that she had found that pathway earlier in the book. I think we'll get a bangening, but I don't think we're going to get a bangening until sometime in the next book, assuming that it follows their story.
As far as I know, it does. It's all 3 books are their story, as far as I know.
That's I imagine that if it's still smoldering, it may, now that they're off and on their own, they may find themselves in a space where they can be free with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there's got to be some sort of like pain point, right, in story 2, like the second act, where she leaves him to go back to see
something,
what's happened,
or save her land, or something, save her parents. Like something's got to happen. Yeah, there's got to be some blowback from it. I actually had a question since you brought it up. I was going to ask you later, but since you brought it up, I saw that on Tome that you mentioned, and you mentioned it here too, that you saw this book as a like monster romance. So for me, and I know everyone's got their own version of it. For me, I don't count it as a monster romance. I know this is different than the crew at Hissin' and Kissin', but I don't count it as a monster romance if the person can pass as like human. So like, it's not like he had wings or tail or scales, or whatever. Like, unless he did magic, no one would know that he was a blood mage.
A bad boy.
Yeah. So do vampires count?
It depends on if they can pass. So if they're daywalkers, maybe. If they if they combust in daylight and can't stand to be around humans without having a blood Capri Sun, then maybe not. So like I think if they can pass in society, I don't know that I personally look at those as monster romances.
I think I started to like qualify monster romance as is the entirety of every character in the book. Is there a multitude of beings, whether it's like a witch or a wizard or a minotaur or an alien, and if there's more than, and then they get from 0 to 3 points based on how many you have. So if there's none, then you're not going to get a point, right? If it's just human on human, you're just going to get a point or no points. But if there's one additional species, then then you get 1 point. Then if you get like multiple, then we're going up to 2 and 3. And so I think with that, I definitely went back and forth in the calculator when I went back and re-examined the formula.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was kind of going through it, I was like, how do I want to assign points to this? So if there's none, one, a couple, and then like multiple species. So when I looked at this book, I thought I came out with multiple species. So if I had humans, and then I had the blood mage, and then I had imps, and then there was that fourth or that an additional type of magic that was popping out. So there were multiple species of sorts that were popping out. So I was like, okay, then I have to tick that box. Honestly, the same way it's like, how do I feel about spice, or how do I feel about other things popping up? And it's just that, and when I tip the scales over towards multiple species, that's what moves it. That's what flips it into monster romance for me.
Okay.
If I eliminate that question, it just takes it down to romance.
Okay.
But the outcomes are for every type of spice level, there's you can end up into with either like a rom-com or a monster rom-com, or like I think in the extreme it's like funny fuckery or funny monster fuckery. I don't know, like all sorts of stuff, or just this is if it's just straight up fuckery.
Yeah.
Which happens from time to time. Yeah, it's ever evolving. But I see what you're saying. I also think he used magic to hide.
Right. He could change his appearance and that of others.
Mm-hmm. And he was able to stave off I forget the guy's name now, the Marquis.
Oh, I wrote it down because I could never. Cedric.
He was able to use magic to like stave off the spell that he was trying. Yeah. Well, the spell that he was trying to, when they were in there, when they were having their one-on-one.
Your one-on-one.
Yeah. I also saw this as like very like business oriented. Like Amma's kingdom has a very
limited resource thing.
Yeah, I mean they're built on equity too. It's like her parents were like, yeah, profit sharing. You know, we're gonna work hard, but we're gonna have gains together, and that's gonna be cool. In exchange for that, we don't have defenses. We have minimal defenses, so let's go buy defenses. So they went to made a deal with Cedric's family. Like, hey, you guys have a military. That's cool. We're gonna give you product at cost. So you'll have your cost of goods sold is going to be as low as possible in exchange for military reinforcement. And that's cool. But the issue then is if you swing defensive power over to one side, now though that guy's family's or Cedric's angle is why the hell should I wait for them to sell me stuff at cost when I can just go take over that kingdom, install my military systematically, and make them work twice as hard for half as much. And I think that Alma's parents were basically like, "Hey, let's squash this. Here's my daughter."
Yeah, bargaining tool.
Yeah, it became business.
Can I interest you in selling my daughter to you? So,
yeah.
What do we think of the world building?
Oh, I went first last, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was so much of it. There was a lot of building. There was a lot of building. There were a lot of side quests. I don't think it was bad. I just think it was a little bit too much for me. So again, it was like a 3.5. Like I wasn't uninterested. I just think I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I detached a little bit. Like I was just like, ugh, like I was really skimming, and I was like, oh, I can skip this. Oh, I can skip this. Oh, this is important. No, I can skip this. So I think it was only a 3.5 for me. I just couldn't lock in. Like I was entertained. I really, it was I liked how it wasn't even a deep dive. It was just like how they explained like the layers of the different, oh God, what did she call them? And I think what struck me too was like they used Imperia or Empyrean. And of course it was very like Fourth Wing mindset.
Yeah.
So like, the heavens were layer 1, and then, the Fae were like layer 2, but only because they wouldn't, catch themselves below humans or something like that. And then the human realm was layers of realms. There were the different layers of realms and how there wasn't necessarily a specific order and they were all kind of existing at once. I really liked that explanation. I thought that gave a lot of insight too, and forewarning as to probably what's coming next. Like we're probably going to see other realms,
right?
So I really liked that. It was like a 3.5 for me. Like it didn't suck. It was very good explanation. There was a lot of characters that were interesting. Like what's his name? Was it Anomalous? Am I saying his name right?
The alchemist.
Louis.
Yes.
The hag called him Louis. I love a good nickname. I liked it a lot. It was just a lot of it.
There's definitely, I want to learn more about some of the side quests. Like they move through different worlds, different lands. I would have liked to have a little bit more knowledge, but at a faster pace, if that makes sense. For like Damien's like home and going through like the swamp area and like the werewolves and stuff like that. I feel like you could skip that and cut that out because they weren't. I don't know if they had a significant impact on the story. There was some fluff built in, and then kind of understanding the pathway to the library or the restricted section was interesting to me. So when she got into the imagery that she was using there in that space I felt was more appropriate, but I don't know. I think there was a bunch of misplaced world building and maybe some missed opportunities for it as well. So like she built where she shouldn't have and neglected things that she could have gone deeper in, if that makes sense. I'd probably give it a 3. The space was there in the book. It was just misused in my humble opinion.
I think I agree with Ashley. There was a lot of world building, and the way it was kind of piled in just felt excessive. There was a lot of world building lore that we didn't need to know that was put in there. And maybe that'll play out later in the series or whatever, but I think there was just a little bit too much. I think there was some interesting stuff that was done. I really liked the concept of the the trees in Ama's realm and how that played into being kind of a big part of the story. And I think it's obvious that that's going to be something to look into further, especially because since Damien didn't know anything about them. So I would say a 3.5.
Okay. For me, I said a 4. It was deeper than I expected it to be, and it felt like I've already said, it felt like a D&D campaign or D&D world. I play D&D, but I haven't played it my whole life or since it started or read every single book out. So often when I'm playing D&D, there's a lot I don't know that's going on in the world, and I'm just kind of rolling with it and figuring it out. And so a lot of times I think I felt reading this book where it's like, oh, there's a swamp thing over there, and then there's this realm over here, and then there's okay, well, we'll see which way we're gonna go. I think there are two main things that stood out to me from the world building, other than it being very D&D like. The first thing was I really enjoyed the snippet in the middle with the elves, because you had these elves in so much of the fantasy I've read and watched are very hoity-toity, for lack of a better word. And so for them to be ooh, we're ghosts, go away. It felt very like What We Do in the Shadows or something. It felt like it humanized them, It's like, oh, wait, they have something to learn, and they're not, they're not like the be all and end all, most powerful, above humanity kind of thing. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that the elves were, that she basically kind of made fun of elves. And then the other thing that stood out to me in the world building was, although the idea of a blood mage is not super original, I don't think I've ever read a story where one of the main characters was a blood mage. So for me, the whole magic tied to cutting yourself and having to give of your blood to have this thing happen was kind of interesting. So,
and sometimes exhaustively, right?
Yes.
So that first scene in chapter 1, I was like, whoa, where are we going from
Right?
here? How does this, if he dies and he's on the cusp of death here? Yeah, I would agree. I don't think I've read a blood mage as the primary character before.
Yeah.
I certainly haven't. I do wish that while they were in with the elves in the cage, I thought here we go. I thought it was for sure, here we go. They're doing some bindings.
Oh yeah, I have notes on that.
I
specifically, chapter 21 was just a straight up BDSM scene. Period. Right? No notes. That's what I wrote.
But then somebody walked in and turned the lights on.
Those darn elves had to come in. It's too human in here. It's too human in here. All right, moving on to romance. What do we think of the romance, Ash?
Romance? I feel like there was a lot of individual growth more than a romantic growth. I don't think we're at the point of romance. I just think it was very midline for me, like a 3. There was some tension, there was some slow burning. He was doing a fantastic job for someone who's never really experienced feelings before. Just kind of oh shit, this is happening. He resisted it a little bit, but he wasn't disgusting about it. He is what he is, and he was not the worst he could be just for the sake of being worst or for the sake of getting the job done. He took criticism, when she was try being nice to Kaz. The next day he tried, and the stupid little imp was just this is glorious. Right? His whole life had changed for the better. I don't know. It was just a 3 for me. There wasn't anything that really struck out other than his desire to find a different solution and not kill her in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Romance.
Mm-hmm. That's where we are.
Yeah. So I would say it was there.
It was there. It existed. We saw it.
There were wisps of the smolder that was happening. And it kind of, you know what's coming. It could have been around any corner at any point in the book, but this and maybe this plays on the spice. So I would say I'll give it a 4 because
you felt the tension.
There was tension. Yeah, you're right. It was. I don't know if it was it wasn't uncomfortable. Didn't have me. I wasn't longing for it, but it was apparent, and because of that, I'll give it a 4.
And I thought the romance wasn't too bad. I thought it was a nice change to the usual approach of romantasy books where there's a big bad shadow daddy. So it was nice that he actually had a nice soft side that developed, and we saw that from his perspective.
Like a mediocre shadow daddy.
Yeah.
Just mid-level.
So overall, I didn't think the romance was too bad. I thought there was a lot of fun little things in their relationship that you could see where there was some romance. The way they sort of would irritate each other made it seem very realistic. So overall, I think the romance was actually pretty decent in this book compared to some other books. So I would say it's a 4.
I basically agree with Kelly. For me, the romance was a 4. It was a slow burn. I feel like he fell first and he was very confused, and it changed him. I don't know if it's just because I've been listening to so much of the Wicked soundtrack or because I watched the movie this year, but there were so many instances of this where I was like, because he met her, he was changed for good. You know?
Oh, well, shit, when you put it that way. Is that what happened to you, baby? Is that what happened to you? Because he met her, he was changed for good?
No, I'm still an asshole.
This is true.
And there's there's the song in the Wicked soundtrack, Loathing, which is the way that the song is put together. It's to the almost to a T. It's like a classic love song, except it's about them hating each other. And I feel like that was like the beginning of them, where, you know, she's blonde, she's perky, she's good. She why did she bandage my hand? Which I also wrote for that scene, total Beauty and the Beast vibes. as I was reading that chapter. And then they get to become, you know, oh, well, maybe we're friends, and then maybe we're more than friends. And I do feel like he fell first, and then she did not trust him, and that kind of hurt him. And I don't think she really got there till the very end. But I felt like it was a good ride. So yeah, I thought the romance was good. I think it would have been a 5 if I had felt I could connect to her side of things more. Like I said, overall I felt like a little flat from her side of her perspective. So it was a 4 for me. Very good. Looking forward to the rest of the series. Now, what do we think about the spice?
There was very minimal spice for me. It's like a 2.5. I'd say a 2.5 for spice. There was a lot of tension, and there was a lot of maybe, and then there was a close maybe, but then some shit went sideways, right? So I think there's going to be spice later.
I didn't find any spice.
You didn't find any?
There was salt.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 1.
I mean, there was very minimal spice. I think there was same thing. There were suggestions of spice. There was definitely, the spice suggestions did tend to seem like it was more of the BDSM type stuff. It was pretty obvious that Amma definitely has some kind of a fetish for being tied up. But overall, I feel like the spice was I don't know, maybe a 1.5 or a 2.
I was going to say probably a 1.5 or 2 for spice until it got to that chapter 21 with the rope scene in the cage. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought that was super well done. I mean, I think overall, as they got to where they liked each other, there was some flirtation that was very well done. And there was some suggestion that was pretty well done. It was very much it was more of a PG book than I was originally expecting it to be too. But then that one scene bumped it to a 3 for me because I thought it was very well done. I thought that it portends potential really good scenes for the next 2 books, which are their story. And I think there's another 2 books that are side characters. I think one of them is from Xander's perspective. So we're going to get a story about him. Yeah. So Spice for me is a 3. So do we think it's a kissing book?
So I feel like I have to sit this one out just because I'm down to the last 5. I'm in the last 5 chapters, but I think I have 2 or 3 left.
Okay.
So I'm going to sit this one out, and I will come back.
I'm going to say no. I don't think
this one's not a kissing book.
I think the whole story has the potential to be a kissing book, but realistically, she fucked everything up from the beginning. So
I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
So no for you?
No for me.
I actually think this is a kissing book because while she monkey wrenched Damien's original plan to be sure, he could have just at any point just killed her.
Yeah.
But the slow building romance and his slowly realizing feelings for her meant that he just decided he wasn't going to kill her at first, and then eventually once all of that got realized, I think it made it clear that the main plot of this book could not have happened if he hadn't had a romantic attachment to her.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree with you. I wrote, yes, it's a kissing book for the same reason. Like, I think that if he had not developed feelings for her, he would have never gone to get that book to try and like get the talisman out of her without killing her. So they would have never been in her town. So it would have been a different story. So I don't think it would have happened the way it did without the feelings, the romantic entanglement.
If she hadn't tried to steal from him,
no,
and touched the talisman, would it like if she wasn't there, everything would have just gone to plan.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, which is the whole story would have been him going to like free his dad, which is a totally different story. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So this book wouldn't have happened. Like the things that happen in this book, the main plot points wouldn't have happened without them getting romantically entangled. You know, one thing that I caught on to was that basically Damien's father and all those, and I'm doing air quotes here, bad gods or bad demons or whatever, were imprisoned because supposedly they're evil because they couldn't feel. Like they couldn't feel love. That's why they were judged to be evil.
Mm-hmm.
But is that true? Because who made that judgment? Like the king and the people who are looting these trees and who may be the big bad by the end of the second and third books. And in the way that, you know, Damien's dad was portrayed doesn't, I don't know, maybe he's changed, but maybe he was this way the whole time. Like he isn't portrayed like an unfeeling person, like an unfeeling parent.
He calls his son Buddy.
Like
how do you, yeah.
And he's like, oh, you don't have to go today. Rest up. You got to take care of yourself. Yeah.
You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't sound like an unfeeling entity. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're all being fooled. Who knows? But to me, I'm just like, I really wonder if it's the whole thing is like, you know, none of the bad guys were actually bad guys. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see. I plan on reading the rest, so I'll let you guys know. All right. Anything else we want to say about this book?
Are you going to read part 2?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what she said. She's going to read them all.
Ash, are you going to read it? Part 2? Are you going to read part 1?
Damn.
Kelly, are you going to read part 2?
Just
Kelly,
throw Ash right
2?
under that bus.
right under the bus.
I don't know if she'll ever crack this puppy open again. I'm not going to read part 2. I'll be honest. So,
That's fine.
this is up to you. The
That's
burden
fine.
lies with you.
I will accept that mission, 100%. I will carry that talisman to the end point. Thanks for listening to Of Swords and Soulmates. Before we go, make sure to check the show notes, rate, review, and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. If it's an option, it helps others to find us. Follow us on Instagram at Of Swords and Soulmates or join our Facebook page at Of Swords and Soulmates. Check us out on our website, ofswordsandsoulmates.com, or on YouTube, TikTok, and Pinterest, the same username. If you'd like to offer a suggestion for a future episode or reach out to us on any of those messages or email. If you want to read along with us as we prep for a new episode, follow us on Goodreads at Of Swords and Soulmates or for chapter by chapter interaction on the Fable app at the Of Swords and Soulmates Book Club. More recently, we also have a Tome account, and as you guessed it, it is Of Swords and Soulmates. You can find us there too. And last but absolutely not least, we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for our next episode when we will be discussing That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. In the face of global and national forces to stifle diversity celebration, we choose to celebrate Black history. Bye.
Bye.